Hey guys, how's it going? David here, and today I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. So first thing we're going to do is find our footage. I have some right here I recently shot in Vancouver. And then we're going to just scrub along here and find where we want to set the in point for the footage to begin. So preferably where the camera starts panning down would be good. We'll set one there. And then also the output for where we want the shot to end. I think right around there is good. We'll set the endpoint, we'll drag that into our composite shot we've created, and we'll just scrub along here, seeing where we want the camera, or where we want the car to enter the frame. Right around there seems good. Yeah, just as that red car passes by, I think would be good. So we're gonna import our 3D model now. I did a lot of searching and I finally found a solid one. I got this Pagani Zonda model, so super exotic car, and I'll leave the link for it in the description for you guys to download, as well as the footage. But anyway, now that we have our model here, we're going to go to the materials properties. We're going to go down to the rims first off. We'll try to find those, and I just want to decrease the specular, and it's going to ensure that light that gets reflected off it is the tone that we selected. So it's going to be more of like a gunmetal, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then there's more I want to do with this. We're going to go down more and find where our window model is. Right there is good, and I want to give it a bit of a tint, so we'll increase the opacity, also darken the specular color, diffuse will lower as well, and I'm also going to increase the shininess and also make sure that they're pretty reflective, and just tweak that a little bit. And we'll also toggle other properties as well. Just dialing that in. This is where a lot of the time will actually be spent tweaking things, and I'd say a good third of the time is actually spent on this screen, just making sure that the model fits properly in the scene we're putting it in, with all the lighting and stuff. And I'm going to make it blue, so for that I just went up to the body properties, and then I selected the blue color. Try yellow, but I'm not feeling it so much, so we'll stick to the blue. I'm liking that. It's a pretty nice shade. And of course, whoever owns this would keep it very clean. So we're going to increase the reflectivity, also the index of refraction, and to something around 36 to 41% for both of those. And then we'll give it some cool red brake pads as well. I didn't like the gray ones too much, and then we'll just tweak some of those properties as well. And as you can already see, that's actually looking a lot cooler already. And for the mirrors, I'm gonna completely max out the reflectivity properties, and also really increase the refraction amount, because this is a mirror which is completely reflective. So that's what we're gonna do for that. And I'll just do a couple things with the body color and things like that. Again, this screen is something where you go back to a lot to change things. So we will return to this later on, but this is just getting it set up for the most part for how we want it to look. I'm going to also change the taillights to a nice red. Also increasing the shininess on those as well, and reflectivity. And the discs in the back as well, I'll kind of make a lighter gray, and making sure all those brake pads are also red for us too. And looks like we're almost done here. Although I want to make sure the tires are completely black, so I've just lower the diffuse color and increase the shininess. That's going to get rid of that glare that you see. And I'll do the same for the back portion as well, and that's looking really good. Nice black, blue on black kind of look. We'll just kind of go over everything again. Again, just tweaking, making small changes. And you guys can kind of experiment with this how you like. This is just what I thought looked the best. And yeah, now that we've done that, we're going to find a portion of the clip that we want to track. Somewhere with the most detail that also stays visible in the shot for the most part. So we're just gonna go down to tracks and then select a new tracker. And I think this area down here is going to look the best, right around here with the most detail. So we'll drag our box, make sure the red box is over what you want visible in the tracking area. And go to options, make sure you set at 50 iterations, track forward, and it's gonna go through the whole clip. And it does kind of drop off pretty quickly, but that's because we're right near the end of the shot. So we'll track backwards, and as you can see, it's actually doing a pretty good job, and we finished just that quick, and it's actually staying on really well. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna import our 3D model. We're gonna copy the tracking points we made and then paste it into, well, first we're gonna make it 3D, of course, the model, and then paste it into the position properties. Make sure you're at the beginning of the clip as well. So I set keyframes for position and pasted the tracking frames or tracking points onto the car. So now as you can see, the car actually does rotate a little bit unnaturally. Well, a lot, but we're gonna kind of dial that in. Make sure you set keyframes for orientation, and then we're just gonna go a few frames ahead at a time and just correct for that and make sure the car stays on a flat surface. And then, yeah, we're just gonna set it on our road surface. And again, this is kind of showing you guys the way to do this, the 3D composite shot in the most effective and simplest yet very cool and realistic looking as possible. So we're not gonna get into Mocha Hitfilm and things like that. But this is an effect that can essentially be for people that are newer to Hitfilm or more advanced that just wanna bust out a super cool effect. And again, this only took me a couple hours, but as you can see, what I've done here is I've created keyframes per rotation. And again, this is all just adjusting the car's movement to fit to the scene, so fit on the flat surface. So we'll create a new point, we'll call it car movement. And this is going to be the actual moving of the car forward. So we're gonna make sure that's 3D to fit with our model. And we're gonna parent the model to that the 3D point. Make sure it's under, make sure that you've set keyframes for position. And we're gonna go right to the end where we want the car to end up. And then now it's really simple. We can just drag that point and the car will move accordingly wherever we want it. It's just simpler than setting anchor points, which take a little bit more finesse. So we're gonna choose somewhere down the road there for the car to end up, and then we'll scrub to the beginning. Wasn't quite happy with that, so we're gonna go back and refine it a bit. Just finding a good spot for the car to completely leave the frame. And this is actually arguably one of the most challenging parts of the process, because as you guys can see, it really does take a lot of tuning in, a lot of finesse, just to get it exactly where we want it, so it's not looks like it's hovering or flying at any point. And again, we'll have to go back into orientation and kind of adjust some of those keyframes. And yeah, I also went into anchor point for the 3D model and set keyframes for that as well. So that's gonna essentially ensure that though, yes, we have the car's movement, that those little changes in the car's, slight changes in the car's position don't look too drastic. So we just make those small adjustments with the anchor points. So I'm gonna duplicate the car mask here. Then I'm gonna move it above the 3D model. And this is gonna be for our car mask. So I also set the 3D model opacity to half. And I drew a mask around this car here. And this is gonna be what gets masked in front of our Pagani. So essentially I'm just setting keyframes for the path position of the mask, and then I'm just going frame by frame, adjusting it to make sure that it's around this vehicle at all times, so that we don't have the Pagani somehow hovering over top of it. And it's gonna add obviously a lot of the realism to it. And yeah, as you can guys see, that's actually looking pretty good so far, not too bad. We'll just have to make a couple little adjustments here. Just gonna dial that in. And I'm gonna set the feather to 6, roundness to 3, expansion to -2, and now I'm going along looking pretty good. So we're gonna move on here. I'm gonna just scale down the car and set keyframes for that to get smaller as it goes off into the distance. So we really get that perspective shift as well. And then again, a lot of this will just be little micro adjustments, and the track was for the main portion, but the manual keyframe setting is for just more dialing it in. So we'll create a light, call it street lamp, and then we're gonna make sure that it's right above where this lamp is at the top of at the very top above in the shot when it starts. That's kind of like the main light source in the scene that we're dealing with. So we'll set the fall off to curve. The reach will be about 5,500, and we'll kind of make it a warmer tone. Okay, not that warm. A little bit on the lighter side there. That's looking pretty good. We'll create another light. This is going to be for the street lamps in the back, so we'll call it street lamps rear. We'll also bring that under the car mask. We'll make it a directional light, so make sure you do that. And we're going to drag it kind of back to the back more, and as you can see, it really illuminates that car nicely from the back. It's kind of like a nice backlight. So make sure you have that position correctly set. But as the car moves, we want the light to kind of wrap around it and move as well, because it wouldn't stay consistent on it. So for that, it's not going to be too much of a challenge. We want to set keyframes for position and go along as the car goes by. We're going to have it scroll from the right to the left. And that's actually looking a lot better. We'll make it a warmer tone as well. So we'll go to color properties. We'll make the fall off linear, set the reach to about 21,000. And we have something that's actually looking pretty good. I'll just dial that in just a little bit here. So now we're going to create a new light. This is going to be a headlight. So this is what's illuminating that Chrysler that you can see in the shot. And this car with the headlight was actually not visible in the shot. But I tried experimenting around with a spotlight, but I couldn't get any good results. So I just changed it to directional, and then I dragged it somewhere around where that vehicle would be. That's casting that headlight. Make sure it's a linear light, max out the reach. And then I'm going to set the environment map to use composite shot for the model. That's going to essentially enable all the reflections, and then make sure it receives ambient occlusion and casts it as well. Then we'll go back into the 3D model's properties, and then we're just going to increase some of the reflectivity on the car there, so we get more of the environment being reflected off it. Then also I find that the top of the car is very washed out, it's very bright. You can't really see any detail there, so we're just going to find that top panel of the car, and then just increase the shininess, and that's going to essentially do it. And also adjust the actual color of the street lamps in the rear as well, so it's more of like a warm tone. Yeah, that's looking actually pretty good. So yeah, we're just going to make a new layer. This is going to be for the shadowing under the car. So we're going to make it a 3D plane, make sure it's black. Go to the transform properties, and then set the orientation to be 90 degrees, so flat on the road surface. And we're going to drag it under the headlight. We'll just call it car shadow. And make sure it's under there properly. Drag it under our actual 3D model. Make sure it's under in 3D space as well, so I'm dragging that down a little bit just to make sure the car doesn't cut it off. And as you can see here, we'll just draw a mask around where the underside of the car is. We're going to increase the roundness a little bit. We'll adjust that mask a bit, feather to about 15, and then we'll also lower the opacity of it. We'll parent it to the model so that it stays to it correctly there. Yeah, just making a little couple adjustments there, just so it's completely under there the whole time. That's already looking really good. So yeah, now we're gonna create some shadows for the car tires. We'll create a new plane, make sure it's black, we'll name it tire shadow. And then I'll also just make sure it's 3D, and then we'll drag it underneath our model. And then now we're gonna create a mask around one of the tires. I'm gonna feather it up to about 16 and position it exactly where we want it. And I'll feather it a little more. And then this will be for the rear left side, so we'll just name that. And then we'll add another one for the right side. Make sure it's 3D, do all those same things. Make sure it's rotated 90 degrees, move it down to the ground. And then draw a mask as well. And lower the opacity also on both. And make sure both are parented to our 3D model like we did for the main shadow. And now I'm just kind of going along and adjusting the main car shadow just so that it's nicely fitted and realistic to the model. Just making small changes like feather and roundness. I'll just dial that in, lowering the opacity of the tire shadows to about 70 looks good. And of course, you'll have to make some small adjustments, even though we parented it to the car itself. And yeah, we're just gonna go along and adjusting other small things. We'll actually also use a blur for the car. Set radius to 1, iterations to 1, and then add in a diffuse effect. So radius about 100, opacity to about 30 is pretty good. Of course, we want it to be subtle, so 20 should be good. And also set motion blur for all the shadow layers as well as the model. And that's actually looking pretty good so far. Well, I just want to kind of add a bit more of a tint to the window. I think it's a little bit too clear right now, so I'll darken it up, increase the opacity a bit as well. And we're going to create a new grade. This is going to be our light flares. So this is going to add a lot of realism. We'll go down to the light flares effect. We'll drag that in. And now we're going to have it placed over our street lamp. So I kind of played around with a few of these for a bit. Digital stripe didn't look bad, but I think my favorite for this would be the golden artifact. So that's what we're going to use. So now we're going to want to track it to our actual footage. So we'll go down to the bottom layer here. We'll hit the plus button for a new track. We're going to extend the red box to fit around the light there. And also make sure that point is where you want the actual flare to be. We're going to track forward. And as you can see, it's going along, doing a really nice job. And we're not going to actually apply it to the light flares layer. Instead, we're going to get rid of that panel. We're going to go down to the tracking point and all the points that were created from the track we just did. And then we're going to copy those over, similarly to what we did originally for the car itself. Then we're going to toggle the light flares on, go to hotspot position, set keyframes for center, and then paste it in. And as you can see, it's actually perfectly aligned now. So it was just easy as that. We can change the pivot position of the actual flares that are created. And just, I like placing them over the car as it moves by to kind of blend it into the scene a little more. So that's what we're gonna do for that. I'm gonna lower the scale a bit, lower the intensity to about 80. And no, sorry, 0.80. And I'll actually keep it at 1 and just keep the scale down as well. So, all right. Now I'm just kind of dialing a few things in with these flares, lowering the brightness of the rays. And we also want it for the right side, so we're going to duplicate the light flares. So it's going to be for that other lamp in the background. And now we're going to track forward for that one as well. Of course, I'm being really quick here because it's essentially what we just did. Same idea. Again, super simple. I'm throwing on a grade now. I'm using the CineStyle effect built into Hitfilm. It just makes it look really cool and cinematic. But now we're actually going to make sure that our flares are actually consistent throughout the scene, and as the camera completely whips down, that they stay connected. So first I'm actually just going to kind of trim everything down so everything's looking neat in our composite shot. And then as you can see, I'm just setting keyframes and moving along frame by frame as the camera pans and make sure it's staying on the light. Even when it's out of frame, we just have a mental image of where it would be, but we're actually going to set keyframes for intensity so that when it leaves the frame, it dies out. So yeah, I'm doing this for both sides. Again, as you can see, I set keyframes for intensity so that when it completely leaves the frame, like right here, we just have it go from the full amount to 0. So, all right, now we're going to make sure the light flares are under our new camera. And also set motion blur for the light flares as well. We'll make a new grade. It's going to be our camera shake. We're going to add some subtle shake as the camera rolls, as the car rolls by. Make sure it's above the light flares, and then grab the shake effect. Now, right off the bat, it's a little intense and it's actually consistent throughout the shot. So, as you guys can, I'm sure you could guess, we're going to set keyframes again, and set the amount to go from 0 to about 30. Of course, this I did play around with a lot, so it is subject to change. Yeah, I'll do a little pre-render here so that we can just see what we're dealing with. Looking pretty good. I think it could be a little bit more obvious. We're just gonna extend the life of it a bit by moving those keyframes apart, increase the amount a little. Also smooth it out as well, so it's a little more natural to how I had held the camera for this actual shot. And also changing the seeds is always a good idea, so it's unique to the shot. It's not like what everyone else does when they just throw on the shake and leave it at that, which I've definitely seen before. But as you can see right at the bottom there, the shot's actually getting reflective on the bottom side. So yeah, we're gonna deal with that in just a moment here. But for the most part, we're just checking to make sure that so to deal with that, we're just gonna increase the scale a little bit. So 1.01 should be just a tiny bit. 1.01 should be good. So now as we can see, it almost becomes completely unnoticeable, but it is just hiding that a little bit more by increasing the scale a bit. So that's what we'll do for that. And I'm going to lower the Y shake, which is the vertical up and down shake, so that we can actually see the car in the frame as much as we can. And that's a little better. Perfect, it's looking really good. So we'll do a full pre-render here just to see our entire shot and what we've got so far. Yeah, I think I'm really liking that. Now we're just going to create a new layer, make it a grade. We'll rename it, and this is going to be the taillights for the car. So we'll name it Taillights. Yeah, we'll go down to the lights and flares and then find our light flares effect. Drag that on, and now we're going to open that up and go down to, I think I like the laser dot the best for this. So select that one And I just want to get rid of those anamorphic flares coming from the side, so we'll go down to raise, set brightness to 0, other elements brightness to 0 as well. And then going back up and go to the pivot position, change intensity to about something like 0.8 would be good for this. And yeah, what I did do here is I just kind of went along trying other things out to see what would look good. Again, take this with a grain of salt. You can kind of adjust it according to the model you're using and things like that. So we'll place it over the back of the car there, set scale to about 500, something around there. And then we'll set keyframes and go frame by frame, adjusting to fit to the back of the car. And yeah, just go frame by frame. Fairly straightforward, and yeah, this is a really awesome step. I think easily overlooked, but I think it blends things in really well. Not only illuminating the back of the car itself, but also our scene. So it kind of blends things in a lot better. And yeah, I'll kind of just adjust things as we go here. So the car mask, and this is the kind of things you notice as you go along as well. If things need to be adjusted as you take a closer look a lot of times. So I'm also just going to change the intensity of the light to go from how we had it to 0. So as the car becomes invisible, so does the light with it. And I'm going to kind of space those keyframes apart a bit, so there's a bit of a gradient. And this will be for the left side, so we'll call it Taillights L. We'll duplicate it and then rename the other one Taillights R. And of course, we're going to have to change things here for it to be on the other side. So I'm just going to quickly do that here. So yeah, essentially what we just did, except doing the opposite for the other side. And yeah, again, giving it a gradient as it enters the frame to get bright as we see it appear. And as we see, the other one needs a bit of adjustment. We'll do the same thing, just going back. And yeah, we can kind of preview that. Make sure the lights are toggled on, and make sure motion blur is also on for those tail lights as well. And yeah, as you can see, that actually did a really good job of kind of blending everything in, adding to the realism overall. And then make sure everything is enabled to be visible. And one of the last things we will do here though is just duplicate that street lamp, so the one above, just directly vertical, and set the intensity to about 50. And I kind of realized this as I went along, and just realized that it created a much more realistic shot, having a little bit brighter of a light on top of the car. So yeah, we'll set scale to fit, go to export, and now we have this. So yeah, I hope you guys found that useful, and thank you for watching up till now. I would love to see what you guys have done with this, so let me know in the comments where I can find it. And also make sure you subscribe so that you won't miss another video. I'll be doing more tutorials like this in the future, so just let me know what you want to see, and I hope you guys take care. See ya.